Lily lived in a small town nestled between rolling hills, a peaceful place where the air was always fresh and the pace of life was slow. At just 10 years old, Lily had a simple yet bold dream: to run a marathon. It wasn't just another item on a bucket list for her. It was a personal challenge, a way to prove to herself something she'd always doubted: her own strength. Lily had never been what people considered an athlete. In fact, her early years were filled with more doctor visits than playdates. She was diagnosed with a condition that made physical activity difficult, and the doctors warned her to take it easy. But Lily didn't care about taking it easy. She was determined to do something difficult, something that could push her to the limits and beyond. Her family, especially her older sister Emily, often joked about how Lily would one day be faster than anyone in town if she tried. But deep down, Emily knew that running was never going to be easy for her. Lily's doctor had given her clear advice: take it slow, be careful, your body isn't made for the long haul. But Lily wasn't interested in being careful. She was interested in pushing boundaries, in seeing just how far she could go. One summer morning, when the sun was just rising and the breeze carried the scent of fresh pine and lavender, Lily decided to begin. She laced up a pair of sneakers, old ones that Emily had outgrown, and stepped out onto the quiet streets of her town. Her legs were shaky as she took the first few steps, but she was determined. The first time Lily ran, it wasn't graceful. It wasn't even close to being impressive. She barely made it a quarter of a mile before her breath became shallow and her legs felt like lead. She stopped, hands on her knees, gasping for air. And then, as if her body had given up entirely, she threw up her breakfast. It was humbling, it was embarrassing. But as she stood there, wiping her mouth and trying to catch her breath, something clicked inside of her. She wasn't done. She wasn't going to let this be the end of her journey. The next morning, she laced up her sneakers again, stepped out into the cool morning air, and ran. Slowly at first, but she ran. It wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty, but it was progress. The first day, she had barely run a quarter mile. By the second week, she could run half a mile without stopping. And by the end of the month, she was able to run a full mile without feeling like she was going to collapse. But it wasn't just about running. It was about learning how to fail and get back up. Lily had always been used to success in the things she loved, whether it was playing the piano or painting. But running was different. It wasn't something that came naturally to her, and that made every small victory all the more meaningful. As the months passed, Lily became more and more focused on her goal. She created a strict training schedule, getting up at 6 a.m. every day to run, rain or shine. There were mornings when the fog covered the town like a blanket, and mornings when the rain fell in sheets. But Lily ran through it all. Her parents, who had been concerned at first, now watched her with a mix of admiration and worry. "Lily, are you sure about this? Running a marathon is a huge commitment. It's not something you can just wake up and do," her mother had said one morning, as she watched Lily pull on her sneakers. But Lily didn't need to be convinced. She knew this was her journey, and no one else could understand what it meant to her. To her, every step she took was a step closer to proving something to herself. She wasn't trying to win anyone's approval. She wasn't trying to show off. She just wanted to see if she could do it. Her training progressed steadily. She gradually increased the distance she ran, adding more miles each week. At first, she struggled to even finish 5 miles without stopping, but by the time she hit 10 miles, she knew she was on her way. She learned how to pace herself, how to listen to her body, and how to deal with the aches and pains that came with pushing her limits. As Lily approached the day of the marathon, she couldn't shake the nerves that had begun to build inside her. She had been training for months, but the thought of actually running 26.2 miles felt overwhelming. There were doubts, too, the what-ifs that crowded her mind. What if she couldn't finish? What if her body gave out? What if she couldn't keep going? But she kept reminding herself why she was doing this. This was never about proving something to anyone else. This was about proving something to herself, about showing herself that she could do hard things. The morning of the race arrived, and Lily stood at the starting line with hundreds of other runners. The energy was electric, the air crisp with anticipation. She could see runners of all shapes and sizes around her, some with professional-looking gear, others with brightly colored shirts. But it didn't matter. She wasn't racing them. She was racing herself. The gun went off, and the crowd surged forward. Lily kept her pace steady, focusing on her breathing and her stride. She didn't look at the other runners. She didn't worry about how fast they were going. She just kept moving, one step after another, mile after mile. By the halfway point, her legs were aching, and the crowd of runners had thinned out. At mile 20, she hit the dreaded wall. Every part of her body begged her to stop. Her legs screamed in pain, her stomach churned, and her mind told her that it was okay to quit. But Lily pushed through. She wasn't new to discomfort. She'd learned how to keep going in the early mornings, when the sky was still dark and her muscles burned with fatigue. She had run through the doubts and the pain before. This was just another challenge to overcome. When Lily finally crossed the finish line, the race was almost over. The crowd had thinned out, and there were no cameras, no cheering fans, no medals waiting for her. But none of that mattered. She had done it. She had crossed the line, not for anyone else, but for herself. There was no grand celebration, no dramatic moment of triumph, just a quiet sense of satisfaction, a feeling of deep fulfillment that came from knowing she had pushed through her limits. For Lily, this wasn't about fame or accolades. It wasn't about being recognized or celebrated. It was about the journey, the process, and the personal victory she had achieved. She had proven to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever believed. After the marathon, Lily didn't stop running. She didn't become a celebrity, and she didn't wear a medal every day. She simply kept running, each day taking one more step toward another goal, another challenge. Her story wasn't one of fame or fortune. It was a story of persistence, of overcoming obstacles, and of doing something difficult because she believed in herself. Lily knew that she didn't need anyone else's validation. She had done something for herself, and that was enough.